Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Travis. Welcome to the Sylvester's Customs live feed at 3. Hopefully the comments are working, so if you guys can actually put some comments in there. Can you hear us? Can you comment this week? Because last week was technical difficulties.
We already got a comment.
Dang.
That's quick.
Lightning speed comments today.
First, we want to get to some of your questions. If you haven't noticed, we've been a lot more active on social media. So we're going to start going through that stuff, seeing what you guys are asking, and bring up some of those questions at the beginning of these lives. So with that being said, after that, we'll get into what we are going to talk about today. So you had some questions that people had asked. Do you want to read those and then give them an answer?
Yeah. So this is based off of obviously last week's botched live. I had Joseph that actually commented through Messenger. I don't mind blocking. My struggle is identifying low and high spots and metalwork. The rest I am patient in. So yeah, I mean, I think that kind of ties into what you actually want to cover today.
Yep.
With dead zones.
Yeah.
Because that is
the dead zone.
The dead zone. Everything looks nice and sexy when you first get it because you get the car, you're excited, you pull it all apart. All of those things are very easy. Then you get it stripped, you get it clean. Maybe you epoxy it, maybe you're dealing with...
Do you want to do more questions?
Yeah, but I thought you wanted to roll into this a little bit.
Nah, we'll do the questions first. He's stealing my lines, folks.
All right. Gary Bates. Hopefully the middle motor in and running still needs the trunk, floor, bodywork, paint, and interior suspension and brakes done. So that's where he's stalled out. One of his other questions was, one issue I have now is everything else is expensive. Where should I start spending on the money first? That, I would say, is part of that roadmap on coming up with a plan for each specific project. We've kind of touched about it in other lives, but really we got 6 cars in here behind us. Every one of them has a very different roadmap. Sometimes it's a timeline, sometimes it's money, and sometimes it's a specific customer want or need. But if it's a money thing, because we know all these parts are expensive, then I try to take care of all the things that we can do the most efficient way. Like maybe you're just gonna tear the car down and start doing your body work. In my opinion, I would say the body work end of it is probably the least inexpensive if you're gonna do it yourself. If you're not gonna do it yourself, it's obviously not the cheapest thing in the world. So I mean, maybe you want to fit a majority of what I call like the meat and the potatoes. It really boils down to like, is your car going to be a resto mod? Is it going to be a factory correct restoration? And so those things play a factor in where you can start. If you're just doing, let's just call it a simple 350 that the car maybe came with, in a Chevy, in your case, Gary, a Chevelle, I think you were not doing an LS. I think you were doing a more of a traditional rebuild. In those cases, you can pull those things apart, bag and tag everything, work on cleaning parts and get things clean so that way you're not dealing with all the grease. And you can start making small patch panel because all of these things are just going to take you personally time and it's not really going to cost you a lot of money. Part of what we teach here is trying to do the most amount of metalwork with the least amount of tools, and then you can slowly build upon the tool collection to tackle more in-depth things. So that is where coming to a class and actually talking about your specific project, coming up with a roadmap for you on planning what should you do first, second, third, and take care of those low-hanging fruit that don't really cost any money, it's just time, would be the answer that I would go to for that one.
Half Acre Fabrications just said he's under a car cutting metal, but he's listening. Be careful.
Jesse. Let's see here. Almost finished in the bodywork, trying to perfect it. Just finished paint now. I got to work out some runs.
I thought you had these ready to go.
I have them.
You lost them already, folks.
So Doug Lambert, I know Doug's probably
He's on here.
He's on here.
Yep, right there.
Right on. Doug, you got any questions about what you particularly are wanting to see, or maybe a question on your specific project? I mean, I know we've kind of been back and forth a little bit about getting you out here to a class and getting your garage freed up, but maybe coming up with some milestones as to what you could start picking away at to where you're not completely dead in the water on your specific project. Maybe give us some feedback. What are you looking for as a goal of how do you see your car finished? Is it going to be a resto mod? Is it going to be a factory restoration? You'd have to remind me as to what car it was, but give us some feedback in the comments and we'd be happy to kind of dive deeper into that.
Perfect. You got more?
I don't think I had a lot.
Okay.
No.
So we want to get into what happens in the middle of your restorations and why a lot of guys stall and they don't move forward. So at the beginning of these restorations, we're super excited, we're pulling them apart, we're stripping panels, and then we get to a certain point where that excitement kind of wears off and we either leave the project alone for a while or we just walk by it. But also at the end, when we're getting close to paint, we get excited again and then you get that motivation. So what are some things that happen in the beginning? And then we'll go to the middle and then we'll kind of talk about the end, but mainly the middle because I think that's where a lot of guys get stuck.
I think there's a level of that dead zone that may be different person to person, but what I have found over the years is that it's always easy to pull the car apart to get things maybe stripped and clean, and then you have that aha moment where you hit the crossroads of something that you don't know. Maybe it's a huge rust repair, maybe it's a patch panel that you can't buy and you can't find. And so those small things, if you don't have a roadmap as to how to tackle that particular area, that is going to be the daunting thing that keeps you from moving forward with your project versus just coming up with a plan of attack. Maybe you come back to that, maybe you sub that out and just move forward picking away at that particular project.
Okay. Something that comes to mind, like aftermarket panels. Mm-hmm. I think guys get held up in, should I repair or try to fix this patch here? Or should I just go out and buy a new one and put that on the car? So what are some things that somebody would get stuck by doing that?
I would say when you weld in a patch panel and you think it's going to fit really good when you've cut and scribed and everything's fitting, but then maybe when you go to weld it and that panel just takes...
Yo! Stand by, folks. Technical error. Technical error. Air. Air compressor, you get it? Sorry.
Dad jokes.
Long day.
Long day. Yeah, it's overcoming the warpage while you're in the middle of a patch panel. If you don't understand it, again, it comes to that hurdle point. Maybe that's something that you know, maybe that's something you don't know. But going through those very basic fundamentals, especially like being here in the shop and having somebody to reach out to and ask these questions on a live, how we're dealing with them, that's going to help keep you guys moving. So those are more of the questions that we're looking for from you guys is, where is your project right now? And if you think about it as a whole, what is the one thing that is hanging you up from moving forward?
So what are some things that happen mentally in the middle of a project? So we could even talk about like business situations with you too. So what are some things that happen when stuff just really slows down you're having to do the detail parts of this, well, the body work or whatever before your first prime. Like, what are some of those feelings that you get, and then how do you overcome them?
You know, when is good enough to move forward? And especially when you're a perfectionist and you're sanding the car in 80 grit and 150 grit and 220 grit and so forth, and you're going through all the grits, do I need to sand the car this many times? And man, that was a lot of work.
So no visible progress.
Yeah, you're not, it always looks the same. You're not seeing progress, but you need to step back and zoom out from the project and notice those milestones as small victories and small wins to keep pushing forward, or switch up the scenery and maybe you can work on other aspects of the project. Maybe if you're working on the body work like Mike's been stuck doing in the paint booth, maybe you can switch and start rebuilding a motor or give things a break. Sometimes you have to walk away and give it a break and then come back in and light the fire. I mean, today's a prime example. We have not touched that 61 Impala in 3 years, unfortunately. And today we jumped back into it, so.
Sweet. So you talked about switching, but you talked about switching in a good way to help you move forward. What about switching in a bad way? So what happens when somebody goes from metal to bodywork, or from bodywork to priming the first time and then reblocking? Like, what are some things that you get stuck there too, right?
Yeah, you can find a lot of frustration in what you thought you knew, and then you may have created problems where you have to go back and redo things. And that is a huge undertaking because you may have spent 100 hours gapping that door only to find out that that thing is not in alignment with the fender or the quarter, and then you have to come back and rework it. But let's just use a small thing. Let's just say you used a 12-inch ruler to check panel alignment from one another. And then so you move forward, you're like, hey, we're good. We got this. We get it all sealed in epoxy. We're ready to scuff it up and start doing our body work. And now you start looking at, maybe it's a poster, a video we talked about, straight line, mirror finishes, and then you realize that you overdeveloped an edge of a door, or the door has too much crown, and we have to get it back flat. And you start realizing that when you put a straight edge for the full distance of what is flat or what that shape needs to be, you realize how far off your car truly is from the beginning that you didn't even know was a thing. And so then you have to reopen that can of worms, and you may be hundreds if not thousands of hours into a project and you don't want to go back. So how do you mitigate and get over those problems to make it where you can move forward?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So another trap is the perfection trap.
Guilty.
So when is it straight enough? Is this good enough? I just want to get to the next step. So I've been working on this thing, you know, and just.
Yeah, I mean, one of the guys commented on here that his holdup is that the car's in epoxy and he doesn't want to start bodywork because he's enjoying driving it. I mean.
So when do you decide you're done reworking things, that is good enough, and you move forward? Because, I mean, realistically, you could work on something forever and it's still not going to be perfect, right? We can agree that there's no such thing as a perfect car.
There is no such thing as a perfect car. You have to ask yourself, is it worth the squeeze every day, everything that you're touching? Is it worth the time that you're going to put forth to move forward? Or, you know, I always say, what is your end goal? Try to come up with your end goal. You can deviate from that end goal slightly, but the goal is that you're still moving forward towards the goal. And that's where having someone to lean on, like, is this okay? Is this doable? Having a community of people to network with and ask questions on, is this okay? I mean, that's what we do in high-end restoration now. We're constantly leaning on other shops, other friends that we have worked with over the years to ask questions. I'm an open book, as you guys have found, and a lot of these shops that actually know what they're doing is the same way. So you have to have some level of community where you have an outlet. Otherwise, that thing could be just in your head that you think that's your holdup and it's not. Sometimes you just need to look through another lens from somebody else. Half the time I'll be working on something and it's this hurdle, and my dad will walk in, or you'll walk in and say, hey, what about this? Like, I never even thought of doing it that way or whatever, and it's just good to communicate that. If you're stuck in a shop where either it's yourself or you're not talking to your coworker, you're gonna find yourself still stuck in the same thing. But if you openly share those struggles that you're dealing with, you'll find ways to get over it and just move forward.
So let's talk about ways to kind of group this stuff into smaller projects and kind of help them with ideas on how to move forward. So if you're looking at the car as a whole and you know you're going to bodywork the car, don't think about bodyworking the whole car.
Yeah.
That's a huge project, and that's a
huge.
Yeah. So maybe break it up into panels.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect example would be like, let's say you're going to start on the driver's side of your car and you're working a fender to a door, so to speak. Obviously, you need to be sighting the whole car as to what is the shape, what is the light line, and refers to light line on, like, if we're talking about long lights, a tube light, and we're thinking, we don't have to physically see it, the car doesn't have to be shiny, but if you can imagine the curvature of the car, maybe it's the quarter panel where it slightly sweeps out and then it's maybe flat from the back of the door to the middle of the front tire. Start in an area that you can just break down shapes and work through those areas until it is done in that particular grit. Because we have found over the years that if you are moving around, you're trying to see progress, right? We're trying to see filler over the whole car and we're getting done, but really what happens is you move to the next grit too soon before that's already done, and then you see everything else that you missed in guide coat that is either still low, or you've primed the car, blocked the car, and then you're not happy with it, and then you do a few fills, prime the car again, blocked car. These are all part of the learning and progression phases, but like you said, breaking off, let's just finish this section all the way in 80 grit and know that that is done, resolved, and behind us, and we can move on to the next area down and just kind of be that tide that moves down the car until you finish those areas out.
I think something else we can do is block out time. So maybe it's a few times a week you can block out 90 minutes and you tell yourself, I'm just going to work on the car that 90 minutes. You put your phone down somewhere, like you don't go into your social media, and you just work on the car. That's the commitment for those 90 minutes. And I think time for us has become a fleeting commodity. So we're really having to start looking at time and blocking things and being able to reach those commitments, right? It's a huge part of that 1% better every day. What are some examples that you have for that?
I mean, literally write out your day and try to have those time blocks where you're gonna cut certain things off and move on to the next thing at that time. And when we talk about like 1% better every day, and you're coming up with a game plan that each day, maybe it's each week that you're gonna work on it, maybe that's just cleaning out one side of your garage, and the next day you're putting the blocks out on a table and you're getting things set up as to what you think you need, so that way maybe the next day when you have 30 minutes you get on a video that you want to reference and see what products maybe you need to have all the tools, so that way when you get to your block of time to do that particular one thing, you can execute. But yeah, I mean, break it down. The more detailed that you can see your project through, the more that you are going to execute on those things. Put it on paper. Even I have issues with that today, where you're constantly thinking about 10 million things that we have to do throughout the day. But if I put it in my notes of my phone and I put it on a to-do list, and I'll put the to-do list as like, what is my high priority things and what are my low priority things?
What are some examples?
Some examples would be like maybe like, for example, me and Sean today, we talked about how we're going to execute on the Impala tomorrow. So although we're starting today to brainstorm on that roadmap as to what is the meat and the potatoes that needs to be in the car. So we know that we need to there's no floor in the car. It's all being built one-off, from the floor braces to the sheet metal to the firewall, everything. So we're literally going to build the whole interior of the car from scratch. So what are the things that we need? We can't just build a floor. So we're thinking ahead of time. We need to start collecting the seats, the steering column, the pedals, the transmission, the driveline, the exhaust. All of those things are critical items that we cannot move forward with any sheet metal work until those are in place. So we're creating systems and checklists for people to be able to go through it and say, did I get all of the things that I need installed? And if you miss things, because you're gonna miss things, how are you gonna pivot from there and just keep moving forward through it? Sometimes you have to take 3 steps back to move forward, but that's how we learn.
So I want to kind of get into some common questions that we hear constantly, and I want to tie them kind of into what we've found and what we've kind of implemented in our systems here. But when somebody asks you what is straight enough, what is your answer for that?
I ask them, what did you envision your car? Did you envision your car being at the local Cars and Coffee car show? Or did you envision your car sitting in the middle of a Riddler winner at the Good Guy show? Because those are 2 very different aspects of what is straight. Are you envisioning that the mirror finish needs to be perfect as you pan down the car? Or do you care if that mirror and that reflection changes from the fender to the door? Because, I mean, it's a drastic difference in how we would attack it. Prime example would be, if you want a Cars and Coffee type car, the Bronco that we built for a friend of mine, we body worked it when we first started, like broke ground on, hey, we're gonna build cars for people. We body worked the fender separate to the door, separate to the quarter panel, and those are straight. But when you put them together, no one panel is perfect. So the car looks great, and I would say that 90% of the people that look at it love it. I don't even like to look at it because of where we are now. That's a growth. So I try to ask those very basic questions on what do you envision the car and what are you willing to, because I may tell people it's going to cost you 6 figures to pay somebody to do that, or that's going to cost you personally 2,000 hours worth of labor. And at that point, what are you willing? Because everybody wants wine on a beer budget. So the more you can take a step back and actually look at your project and understand what does that take to get the project to there, you may reevaluate what you actually want.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest questions or misconceptions nowadays is we're seeing all these shops get their metal perfect, right? Perfect. Let's talk about, when do you know that's good enough to move to actually doing filler?
Great question. We're utilizing straight edges that are the length of the shape of the car. So again, going back to that whole, most cars are typically flat. Most cars, not all cars. From, like, say, the back of the door. Let's use the 57 Chevy as a prime example. From the back of the door to the center of the front wheel is flat. You need to be looking with a long straight edge. So whether that's a piece of 1-inch round tubing that's aluminum and kind of flexible, or some 1/2-inch flat bar that you can actually sight, if you get the panels within a 1/16 to an 1/8, that's pretty damn good. And so you're gonna, and then people will get hung up on, like, well, I have an aftermarket panel here and a factory panel here, and it's perfect for 3/4 of the whole door, but in this one area, it's about a 1/4 inch off. How are we gonna address that? Quite frankly, that just boils down to how picky and what kind of tooling, what kind of knowledge do you have. Does it really matter if you have a couple onesie-twosie areas where it ends up slightly more filler than the next? Not really in the grand scheme of things, but what does matter is how good you prepped before you applied your filler in that area. So
Yeah. So you guys got to remember also that these cars, when they were built, they were not perfect in any way. Like the gaps weren't right. Like they don't look like the cars do today.
no.
They're completely different. The doors are all turtle shelled. Like you're dealing with that down the whole car. So it can become a pretty difficult and time consuming thing to correct. So you gotta base your expectations on what you're actually capable of doing to know what you can have for that end product.
Not only that, even when you come to a class, it seems like we've gotten some feedback, and it seems like everybody thinks that they know exactly what they're going to do, and that's great. That's what I want, right? When you leave here, you have a clear path. What we want to start doing is having also an outlet and a resource for you guys to have some kind of access to us. That's what we're kind of working on, to where you guys can ask the questions as you hit those hurdles, because as easy as it sounds to like do a weld seam and then correct that, what about when you have two pieces of metal and a door edge flange that's hard to weld on, and you just welded on it, and now the door that was flat is now shrunk on the ends, and how do you work all that back out? There is so many things that I am continually learning on this every single day throughout the day to make them better and better. So at that point, you are getting access to us as that, call it quote unquote cheat code. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You just have to basically get in touch with somebody who has already struggled with that to move you forward.
Perfect. So when you're welding in patch panels, or you're doing door edges, or probably patch panels more, but when do you stop chasing that weld? When is that good enough? Are you taking everything back to a mere finish? Are you, because there's issues with access, there's a lot of different things that come into play. So when do you stop? Like what's that point where you can stop, where you know you're at 80, 85%, but if you go another 15%, like that's a bunch of hours. So like what is that point?
It kind of boils back to, if you can put a straight edge in the car and you can be within a 16th or an 1/8 inch, you're doing pretty good. If you're doing a weld seam, it's not that hard if you have access to get. So I always say, if it's an exterior panel, or it's a panel that you're going to physically see, so we're talking exterior versus say a firewall. Firewalls matter to me because I feel like that's kind of a elegant place that you see. But let's talk about like a floor pan.
Okay.
Do you need to hammer and dolly a floor pan? Not necessarily. We're doing it more for, I guess, bragging rights more or less than anything. But really what matters is that you understand what you're going to affect before you actually do it and how to correct it. Because I think most people just think, well, I have this rust spot, I'm gonna cut this out, weld this in, body work it out, but they're not even thinking about what that weld seam is gonna do if they don't hammer and dolly it. Because that area, can it work? It'll work, it'll look okay. But if you're shooting for a higher level of perfection and your OCD, then you need to understand how to stretch out that weld. Is it worth making access to get to it? So my rule of thumb is always, if you don't have access to the
Fender.
Yep.
Oh, we're freezing up. I think we're probably still good. So one more of these. When do you know when to go to primer? When is your body work good enough that you can go into primer?
When you have corrected the majority of the car in 80 grit, you've guide coated it, you've 150 grit blocked it, because what you're doing is, I like to compare it to like a skydiver. You jump out of the plane and you're free falling at a fast rate, and you're at a very high level. You don't really know how fast that ground is coming up. So things look great from that high level. It's like me looking at the camera with no glasses. The car looks great, it looks straight. And then you get to 150 grit and you've blocked the guide coat and you realize everything that you were inconsistent with, every hammer strike, every block stroke of the sandpaper, you start seeing how that becomes very important. So if you can get the car into 150 grit and you don't have any guide coat showing, that is, in my opinion, when you would be moving into a surfacer primer.
Okay. I know there's always the primer's going to take care of that thing too, so you can't go, there's the other way you go too that can mess you up. So there's a middle ground there. You don't want to leave a bunch of stuff. So that's when that saying aim small, miss small kind of comes into play.
Yes.
Take care. If there's something there in filler and you know it's there, just take care of it, because if you don't, it's going to haunt you after you prime it.
Think about this. You know, you spend all this time doing body work, and then you have to mask the car, prime the car, so then you spent product on 2 or 3 gallons of surfacer, maybe it's polyester, right? And then you have all that time that's going to take to block all of that product down, and now all of your window gaps, door gaps, everything starts to close up because you're not even thinking about what is all that excess primer that you think is going to fill it go away. Those areas keep building up and keep closing, but yet that's just causing more and more labor for you guys rather than really dialing in your body work and understanding what you are looking for and when to proceed to the next step. So I mean, you think about it like going back to the skydiving thing, you're falling, and at some point you're gonna pull the chute, and then you can take more time to look at it. You're doing the same thing when you're blocking a car in 80 grit and you upgrade. Every time that we upgrade a grit, we're doing a lighter touch, a longer motion, and it is showing us more as to what is giving us a mirror finish or not. We're talking about a finish that a lot of old school guys will talk about feeling a panel with their hand. We're talking about a finish that your hand is never going to see. You are relying on a process, a system, and a guide coat that is actually going to pinpoint exactly where your issue is. Our goal is to show you guys how to move through that project efficiently, and through practice, you should be able to, at some point, be able to prime the car one time. That is always the goal. You don't always get to the goal, but the more that you do of this and the more things that you clue in on all the stuff that we teach, I would say it's like the videos that we put out. There is so much information packed into each video that if you did the video, you went out to your garage and you're time blocking your car, your project to do it that day, and then you're gonna have a different set of questions. If you watch the same video on that, you're going to get a whole different round of questions. You're only going to take in what you don't know at that moment, and that's going to be different for everybody. So if you have a class with 8 guys, every one of those 8 guys is going to get something completely different. I see the topic where people go, I'm new, I don't have any experience, do you have a class for that? Or I have 30 plus years, do you have a class for that? I would say that the class that we hold is from everything from somebody who's brand new day one to somebody who has 30 plus years. We have had them both in the same class, collaborating as a community, and also sit back and look at that and say, man, I really did get something out of that, whether it was day one or 30 years.
Yeah. And you bring that up, and I want to bring something up that's going to come out tomorrow. We had a guy that was in our last class that has a YouTube channel also, and he put together an 18-minute review on the whole class where he talks about all those things. He did a really great job on it. So that'll be coming out tomorrow. If you guys are interested in the class, or if you've ever just thought about it, check that out. It'll be up on our channel too. It'll be a collaboration. So
from IBF Hot Rods.
Yeah, IBF Hot Rods. He's in Indiana. He's a good guy.
Elliot's great.
So I'd say gentleman, but I'd probably
I'd say some other things. We couldn't talk about it.
I'll have to use it loosely. No, he's a great guy. We did have a question. A guy got in here right away and asked it, and we missed it. Plan to use satin black single stage on my engine bay, core support, etc. Is it okay to spray single stage over epoxy primer?
Yes. But. So there's several ways you can get a satin finish let's give a few different scenarios. You could use a satin clear. They even have clears that you can change the mix ratios to make them gloss, satin, flat, all of the above. And you're gonna fight it way less than you would with a single stage, because you're not gonna be worrying about making sure that you have all the pigment where you want. Base coat, clear coat products are gonna be much more user friendly, especially if you're newer to this. And with the caveat of that, you need to be reading a TDS sheet which is a technical data sheet for the epoxy primer that you are spraying, because you only have a window to top coat epoxy primer before you have to give it one of two ways. Throughout the process, you have to have either chemical adhesion or mechanical adhesion. Meaning, if your recoat window for that particular epoxy that you are going to use, number one, can you recoat the epoxy? Because some epoxies don't like to be recoated. And I will tell you from honest experience, we've even used products like, let's use a VP 2050 as a prime example, because anybody who has watched
you said
this
prime example. Prime example. Sorry.
These
good stuff.
Dad jokes. These primers, when we first started using them, they said that you couldn't just recoat them because it's a hybrid primer. It's a DTM. They don't actually consider it an epoxy because it's actually an epoxy urethane hybrid. And so you can't just recoat that. Now, if you read the technical data sheet and it says that your recoat window for painting single stage, two stage, whatever it is you're going to spray, can be done within 72 hours, maybe it's less. I will tell you that there is a tightrope there, because I have physically had things that were chemically adhered. That's what they said you could do. Had an interior guy mask off the whole cage. They put the interior in, pull the tape, and it pulls the paint off of the cage. And I was within the spec of their technical data sheet. So now I just would rather take the time, let that cure, sand the epoxy thoroughly, and then recoat it at that point. But there's so much that goes into that, and that's where I say it makes more sense to lean on us with what product is it, what does the TDS say, and what can you actually get away with. Because an engine bay may be easier or harder to do at different times, and that's where, like, we're thinking literally 20, 30 steps ahead. Is the car ever going to go on the rotisserie? Are you painting it in your driveway? Is there a windstorm scheduled for that day when you're going to paint? Like, there's so much that goes into pulling off something. Taking the easier route is never going to do you any service.
Nice.
That's a long-winded answer for that.
That is an answer, Axe. I hope that answers your question. So, kind of reframing this whole thing, remember that these restoration projects you guys have, it's not about the metal, it's not about the bodywork, it's not about the paint. It's about finishing these projects. It's not about getting it and letting it sit and bother you forever. And we're trying to get as many resources out there for you guys to kind of help you along. So we answer questions. Travis does a lot of stuff on Instagram if you're not following us there. We have an X account that's up now. We're doing stuff on threads on Instagram, and we're posting more to Facebook. So if you guys will, please get on there, interact, ask those questions, and we'll bring them up on these kinds of things. And I hope that helps you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that maybe we don't have time throughout the week. If we miss responding to a comment, we will try our best to address some of the comments on these lives, as well as maybe you plan to copy that comment into the live so that way we can address it on the fly.
So look for Elliot's video tomorrow from IBF Hot Rods. That'll give you a good understanding of the class. We do have some coming up. Check the website for those dates. And
if you guys are looking in your local, or even if you're not local and you want to spend the money on a class, I would say that not this weekend, but next weekend we have a class. We only have 2 people signed up. And if we've only got 2 people signed up,
those guys are stoked.
Those guys are going to be stoked because they're going to get my undivided attention for those full days. Just us 3. So, and Mike.
Yep.
So it's Some of these classes, when I commit to these weekends, if I have one person show up, well, then that one person gets my full-blown attention to come up with that full game plan. So if you have a project and you're stuck, then come up with every possible question on paper that you could physically think of. Bring a video camera, I don't care, and set it up in this class and address every single one of those questions, and we will sort out all of that stuff. And I think in grand scheme of things, people think that the cost to travel and $1,500 is a lot of money for a weekend, but you're literally skipping 30 years of problems and solving that for you. You're gonna save it just on the product, let alone the time and labor. Because on average, these cars have, on the lower end, there's 1,000 hours into body and paint. And on the higher end, there's 2,000 hours. So it's a perspective. Some will say that's excessive, but we're shooting to give you guys the knowledge and the know-how to provide a show quality car out of your 2-car garage or single bay, especially if you're Jesse Halfacre working in the tightest quarters. He's spoiled now. He's out there doing jumping jacks around the car, but yeah.
All right, you guys ever have one of those cars that you turn the ignition off and it just keeps running? We're good, we're done. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. We will be back next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. I don't know the topic yet, but we will put that stuff out on our social media. Hope you guys have a good night.
Till next week.
See ya.